The night was heavy with snow. The wind screamed across the mountains. Each gust carried sharp ice that cut like knives. The world looked white and endless. There was no life in sight, only silence and the storm. A human traveler moved slowly through the frozen land. His boots sank deep into the snow. His breath rose like smoke in the cold air. He wrapped his cloak tighter, his hands almost numb. Every step felt heavier, but he kept walking. He had faced storms before, yet this storm was different. It wanted to swallow him. The snow blinded his eyes. He could not see far. He only followed the dim light of his lantern, but even that light shook in the wind. He knew if he stopped moving, the cold would claim him. He thought of home, of warmth, of fire, but all that was far away. Then he heard it, a faint sound. At first he thought it was only the storm, but the sound came again. It was soft, it was weak, it was a cry. He froze, his heart pounded. Who could cry out here? No one should be alive in this deadly place. The storm should have killed anything small or weak, yet the sound returned. It was not just the wind. It was a voice. No, two voices, faint, broken, desperate. The human turned his head. He pushed forward through the snow. The cries grew louder. Each step pulled him deeper into the storm, but his heart pushed him on. Something was out there, something alive. He fell to his knees and began digging. His gloves scraped at the ice, his lantern flickered, and then he saw a shape, a small figure under the snow, its skin pale blue, its body still, but its lips moved, a whisper, a plea. His eyes widened. It was not human. It was alien, a girl. No, two girls. One lay across the other, both half buried in the snow, both trembling, both close to death. He pulled one free. Her eyes fluttered open, glowing faintly in the darkness. She gasped and clung to him. The second one reached for his arm, her fingers cold as ice. They looked at him as if he was their last chance. He dragged them up from the snow. Their small bodies felt weightless but also fragile, like they could break in his arms. They were shaking, their voices weak. They whispered words he did not understand, yet their eyes begged, their eyes told him everything. He looked around. The storm raged louder. If he left them, they would not last another minute. If he tried to carry them, the snow might bury all three, but he could not walk away. Something inside him refused to leave. He pulled them close under his cloak. He felt their cold breaths against his chest. He whispered, "Hold on." Though he knew they might not understand, the storm screamed, the snow burned his skin, but he kept moving. The cries faded to silence. Their heads rested against him, their bodies limp. He could not tell if they lived or died. He only knew he must find shelter soon. His lantern shook, his heart raced, and the storm swallowed all sound. But somewhere deep inside the blizzard, hope still lived, and the human would not let it die. The human pushed forward through the storm. The two alien girls were heavy in his arms, not heavy like weight, but heavy like fear. Fear that every step might be their last. He could feel how cold they were. Their skin was strange, almost glowing faint blue, but the glow was fading. Their breaths were weak. So weak he had to place his ear close just to hear. One gasped, the other whispered. Their voices lost in the wind. The human kept moving. His boots sank deep into the snow. His lantern swung wildly. But then, through the white storm, he saw a shape. A small dark shape at the edge of a cliff. It was a broken hut, half buried under the snow. It was not safe, but it was shelter. And right now, shelter was life. He kicked the door open. Snow fell inside like a wave. He dragged the two girls in. He slammed the door shut against the wind. Inside it was dark, cold, but at least the storm was no longer cutting his skin. He placed the girls down on the wooden floor. They looked so small, so fragile, their limbs thin, their clothes torn, their faces pale. He knelt down and pulled off his gloves. His hands touched their skin, and he almost pulled back in shock. It was like touching ice itself. He worked fast. He pulled dry cloth from his pack. He wrapped them. He lit a small fire in the broken stove. The flames came to life slowly, and with the fire came light. In that light, he saw their faces clearly for the first time. They were not like humans. Their eyes were larger, glowing faint green, their ears pointed and delicate, their hair silver white like strands of snow. Even half dead, they looked otherworldly, almost beautiful in a haunting way. One stirred, her lips moved, a whisper came out. He leaned closer, her voice cracked, but he heard it. One word. Please. The second girl coughed. Her small hand reached out. Her fingers curled around his wrist. She was so trembling, but she did not let go. Her grip was weak yet desperate, like she was clinging to life itself. The human fed the fire more wood. The heat spread slowly. The sisters' skin shimmered faintly as if reacting to warmth. Their color returned. Their breaths grew deeper. They were alive, but still close to death. He looked at them. Questions filled his mind. Who were they? Why were they out in the storm? Why no one came for them? But the sisters were too weak to answer. They only stared at him with glowing eyes filled with fear, and something else, a strange trust. The human gave them water. He pressed the flask to their lips. They sipped slowly. Drops ran down their cheeks. One whispered something in her language. The other nodded weakly. He did not understand, but he felt the meaning. They were thanking him. The storm outside howled. The wooden walls shook. Snow pressed against the hut, but inside there was fire. Inside there was a fragile hope. The human sat by the fire. The sisters lay wrapped in his cloak, close together, their breaths still weak but steady. He watched them carefully, and he knew one thing clearly. This was no chance meeting. This was fate. Somewhere deep in his chest, a thought rose. He had not just found two strangers, he had found two lives tied to his own, and he could not let them go. The night outside roared, but inside the broken hut, three souls clung to a fragile flame, a flame that could change everything. The fire burned low, its flames crackled in the broken stove, orange light spread across the hut, shadows danced on the walls. The storm outside still howled, but inside warmth began to return. The human sat close to the fire. The two alien sisters lay wrapped in his cloak. Their breathing was weak, but stronger than before. Every small breath was a sign of life, and every sign of life gave him hope. He studied them carefully. Their faces were pale yet soft. Their silver hair reflected the firelight. Their glowing eyes opened slowly, not bright, but alive. One girl turned her head. Her lips moved. A faint whisper slipped out. "You saved us." The words were broken, but he understood. The second sister shifted. She coughed. Her small body shivered, yet her eyes fixed on him, full of fear and confusion. The human reached for his pack. He pulled out a piece of bread. It was dry and rough, but it was food. He broke it into smaller pieces. He offered it to them gently. At first, they did not move. They only stared, as if unsure if it was safe, but hunger was stronger than fear. The older sister took a piece. She placed it to her lips. She chewed slowly. Her body trembled as if her strength returned. The younger one followed. She ate with small bites, her hands shaking, her glowing eyes watered, as if the simple act of eating was too much to bear. They whispered again in their language, the words unknown, but the meaning was clear. They were grateful. The human watched them. A strange feeling stirred in his chest. He had met many beings in his travels, but none like these two, so fragile, so close to death. Yet their eyes held something deeper, a silent plea, a question without words. Why would you save us? He did not answer out loud, but in his heart he knew, because leaving them behind would be the same as killing them, and that he could never do. The fire grew stronger. The hut filled with warmth. The sisters leaned closer to it, their bodies pressed against each other, their faces soft in the firelight. They looked less like dying strangers, and more like lost children who had finally found a safe place. Suddenly, a sound came from outside. The human froze. It was faint, but sharp. Not the storm, not the wind, a crunch of snow. Footsteps. His hand went to the knife at his belt. His body tensed. The sisters' eyes widened. Fear spread across their faces. The older one whispered something fast. The younger one buried her face against his arm, shaking. They knew that sound, and it terrified them. The human's heart raced. Who was out there? Had someone left these girls to die on purpose? Was someone hunting them? The firelight flickered. The footsteps faded. Silence returned. But the fear did not. He looked at the sisters. They clung to him, their trust clear, their need desperate. He whispered softly, "Don't worry, I'll protect you." The words were simple, but they changed everything. The sisters looked at him, tears glimmered in their glowing eyes. They pressed closer, their weak bodies trembling less. The fire warmed them, but his promise warmed them more. The storm outside raged on, but inside the shelter of fire, a bond began to grow, a bond that neither snow nor storm could break. The fire burned lower now, shadows spread across the walls, the hut was quiet, only the storm outside roared, but inside silence was heavy, the kind of silence filled with secrets. The human sat near the sisters, they rested under his cloak, their breathing steadier than before, yet their glowing eyes stayed open, watching him, studying him, as if waiting for something. Finally the older sister spoke. Her voice was faint, her words broken, but clear enough. They left us. The human frowned. He leaned closer, her eyes shone with pain. She clutched her sister's hand, her lips trembled. Our people threw us away, she whispered. They said, we are weak, useless. The younger sister nodded slowly, her tears caught the firelight. She pressed her face against her sister's shoulder, as if ashamed, as if afraid. The human's chest tightened, thrown away, left in the storm to die. He had seen cruelty before, but never like this. He could not understand how anyone could leave children, alone, in the cold. The older sister's voice cracked again. They wanted the snow to take us. No one would care. No one. Except you. Her words cut deeper than the storm outside. The human looked at them. Two fragile beings, banished by their own blood, and still, somehow alive. Because of chance. Because of him. He asked softly, why? Why would they do this? The sisters exchanged a glance. The younger one spoke for the first time. Her voice tiny, like a whisper of the wind. We are smaller than others. We cannot fight like them. We cannot work like them. To them, we are broken. She shivered, her words shaking as much as her body. The older one held her close, then her glowing eyes locked on him. You saved us. But if they find us again, they will finish what they started. The human's hand tightened on his knife. He thought of the footsteps he heard earlier, the sound of some thing or someone outside. Could it have been their tribe? Were they already hunting them? The sisters leaned closer, their bodies pressed against his side, seeking warmth, seeking safety. The older one whispered, you are the only reason we breathe now. Without you, the snow takes us. The human felt their trust. It weighed on him. He had not asked for this, yet their lives were now in his hands, and somehow, he could not imagine letting go. Outside, the wind screamed louder, the hut shook. Snow pressed against the broken door, but inside, another storm raged. The storm of truth, the storm of fear. The human fed the fire more wood. He looked at the sisters. They looked back. Their eyes glowed faintly, not with fear now, but with something new, a strange spark of hope. The older one whispered one last thing before sleep claimed her. You are not one of us, but you are the only one who gave us life. Her words echoed in his mind long after her eyes closed. He sat awake, knife in hand, watching the shadows, listening to the storm, and wondering how far their tribe would go to finish what they started. The night stretched on, but the human knew one thing clearly. He had stepped into something larger than himself, something dangerous, something binding, and in that dark shelter, with two fragile lives resting against him, he silently vowed he would not let them fall again. The night dragged on, the storm screamed against the hut, snow pressed hard on the roof, but inside the fire still glowed. The human sat awake, knife in his hand, eyes fixed on the door. The alien sisters slept close to him, their bodies warm under his cloak, their breathing soft. He should have felt calm, but his heart would not rest. The sound of footsteps outside haunted him still. Then it came again, crunch, slow, heavy steps in the snow. Not the storm, not the wind. Someone was out there, circling the hut. The human tensed, his grip tightened on the knife. The sisters stirred. The older one's eyes opened, glowing faint in the dark. She gasped. They found us. Her whisper shook with fear. The younger sister pressed against him. Her small hands clutched his arm, her glowing eyes wide with terror. They will kill us if you don't stop them, she whispered. Her words were broken but clear. The human moved to the window. Through the cracked wood, he saw shadows moving in the snow. Tall figures wrapped in thick fur, carrying long spears. Their glowing eyes burned like predators in the dark. There were at least 5 of them. Hunters, silent, patient, searching for prey. And the prey was here, inside his shelter. The human's breath grew heavy. He had only one knife, only a small fire, and 2 weak girls to protect. But still, he stood firm. If he opened the door, they would strike. If he waited, they might break inside. The older sister clutched his hand. "You cannot fight them." "You will die," she whispered. Her voice was desperate, but her eyes showed something else. A strange spark. She wanted him to fight. She wanted him to protect them, even if it cost his life. The human looked at the flames, then at the hunters outside, and a thought struck him. The fire. The one thing the storm could not kill, the one thing the hunters feared. He grabbed a burning brand. Shh! The flames roared as he lifted it high. He kicked the door open. Snow rushed in. The wind screamed. The hunters froze. They had expected weakness, but they saw a man of fire. A stranger, a human, standing tall with flames in his hand. The sisters cried out behind him, their voices filled with terror and hope. The hunters snarled, their spears lifted. They moved in, but the human roared. His voice cut through the storm. He swung the burning branch. The fire sparked in the night. The hunters stepped back. For the first time, uncertain, the human's knife gleamed in his other hand. His eyes burned with fury. He shouted, "You will not take them." The storm carried his voice across the snow. The hunters hesitated. They had never seen such defiance. They were used to prey that begged, not prey that fought. One hunter lunged forward. The human met him head-on. The fire struck his fur. The beast screamed. The others stepped back. The storm swallowed their growls. Inside the hut, the sisters held each other, their eyes wide with fear and awe. The man they thought was only a stranger now stood like a shield against death itself. The hunters circled, but none stepped closer. The human's fire burned too bright. The storm roared around them, but he did not fall. Not yet. The night was far from over, and so was the fight. The storm screamed louder. Snow whipped across the night. The human stood at the door of the hut, fire in one hand, knife in the other. The hunters circled like wolves, their glowing eyes fixed on him, spears ready to strike. Behind him, the sisters clung together, their voices faint. "Please, don't leave us," the younger whispered. Her fear carried in every breath. The human did not turn. He kept his eyes on the shadows, his body tense, his heart fierce. The first hunter lunged, spear flashing through the snow. The human swung the burning branch. The fire cracked. The hunter hissed and stumbled back. The flames licked at his fur. The smell of smoke filled the air. The second came from the side, fast and silent. The human ducked low. His knife flashed. Metal met flesh. A cry ripped through the storm. The hunter staggered. Blood stained the snow. The others growled. They closed in tighter, but the human roared. His voice carried like thunder. The sound shook even the sisters. They had never heard such power. Not from their own people, not from anyone. Another spear came down. The human blocked with the branch. The wood cracked. The fire scattered into sparks, but the hunter recoiled, afraid of even the smallest flame. The human pressed forward, knife slashing, branch striking. He fought like a beast cornered, but stronger, faster, every move fueled by something greater than fear, the need to protect. The hunters snarled. One shouted in their strange tongue. They thought he would fall quickly, but the human did not break. Each strike of his knife drew blood. Each swing of fire pushed them back. Inside the hut, the sisters watched with wide eyes. The younger trembled, but the older whispered, "He fights for us. He fights like no one ever has." Her glowing eyes filled with something new, not only fear but awe. The fight dragged on. Snow churned under their feet. Blood mixed with ice. The storm howled, but the human's roar was louder. Each breath burned his chest. Each strike cost him strength. But still, he stood. One hunter tried to rush past him, aiming for the sisters. The human saw it. He moved fast. He tackled the hunter into the snow. The knife struck deep. The hunter fell still. The others froze. For the first time, they hesitated. They saw their prey had become a predator, a human, a stranger, but stronger than they imagined. The human rose, his body bruised, blood dripping from his arm, but his eyes burned with fire. He held the knife high. He held the broken branch still glowing. He shouted into the storm, "Come then, try me." The hunters growled, but none moved. They backed away. Their glowing eyes faded into the storm. One by one, they disappeared into the blizzard, leaving only silence. The human stood alone in the snow, his breath heavy, his arms shaking. But he had not fallen. He had stood. He had protected. Inside the hut, the sisters cried out. They ran to him, their hands pressed against his wounds, their glowing eyes filled with tears. "You are hurt," the younger whispered. The older shook her head. "No, he is more than hurt. He is strong." The human let out a long breath. The storm still raged, but the night felt different now. The hunters had tasted his strength and they had fled. He had stood against death itself and won, not for himself, but for them. The storm slowly faded. The howling wind became a low whisper. Snow still fell, but the hunters were gone. Only silence remained outside. Broken huts, blood in the snow. And one man still standing. The human staggered back inside, his knife dripping red, his arm shaking from the fight, his body cut and bruised, but his eyes steady. He had not fallen. He had kept his promise. The sisters rushed to him, their glowing eyes wide with fear. They pulled him toward the fire, their small hands trembling. The younger pressed against his chest. "You are bleeding," she whispered. Her voice cracked. Her tears burned his heart. The older sister tore cloth from her own dress. She pressed it to his arm. Blood soaked it quickly, but she did not stop. Her hands were gentle but firm, her glowing eyes fixed on him. "You stood for us. No one has ever done that," she whispered. The human sat down heavily. The firelight danced across his face. He breathed slow. He felt weak but not broken. The sisters stayed close, one on each side, as if afraid he might vanish if they let go. The warmth of the fire spread, but the warmth of their touch felt stronger. The younger sister leaned her head on his shoulder. Her silver hair brushed his cheek. "You are our fire," she said softly. Her small voice carried deep meaning. To them, fire was not just heat, it was life, and he had become that life. The older one nodded slowly, her glowing eyes wet with tears. "You are not like our people," she whispered. "They would have left us. They did leave us. But you fought death itself for us." Her words were heavy, her voice broke with pain, but in her eyes something new burned. Not just sadness, not just fear, but devotion. The human said nothing. He only looked at them, two fragile beings thrown away by their tribe, now pressing close to him, as if he was their only world, and maybe he was. The storm outside began to quiet. The roof stopped shaking. The night grew calmer. The sisters pulled closer to him, not for fear now, but for comfort, for warmth. Their small hands clutched his cloak. Their heads rested against him, their breaths steady, their trembling fading. The human felt something stir in his chest, a strange pull. He had saved strangers before, but this was different. These sisters did not just need protection. They needed belonging. They needed someone to see them, to choose them. The younger whispered again, "You will not leave us, will you?" Her voice was soft, but her glowing eyes were sharp, as if her whole life depended on his answer. The human looked at her, then at the older sister who waited silently. Her lips pressed tight, her eyes burning with the same question. He placed a hand on each of theirs, his voice steady. "No, I will not leave you." The sisters broke into tears, silent tears that fell on his arms. They held him tighter, as if that promise was a chain they would never let go of. The fire crackled softly, the storm faded into silence, and in that small hut, a new bond was forged, not of blood, not of tribe, but of choice. The human was no longer just a stranger, he was their protector, their warmth in the cold, their fire in the storm, and deep in their hearts they knew. This bond would not break, not tonight, not ever. The storm was gone, morning light touched the snow. The world outside looked calm, but inside the broken hut, the air was heavy, not with cold, but with silence. The human stirred awake, his wounds ached, but he was alive. The sisters sat beside him, watching him with glowing eyes, their faces soft, yet strangely serious. The younger sister leaned forward, her silver hair brushed her cheeks. "You did not leave," she whispered. Her voice carried both relief and fear. "You stayed when all others would walk away." The older sister nodded, her hand pressed against his chest, where his heart beat steady. Among our people, she said slowly, such an act is not small. To fight for the weak, to give warmth in the storm, it has meaning, deeper than you know. The human frowned. He did not understand. What meaning? He asked, his voice low, suspicion rising in his chest. The sisters looked at each other, their eyes spoke a silent language. Then the older turned back, her lips trembling, her words careful. In our culture, she said, when a life is saved with blood and fire, when one stands against death for another, it is a bond greater than family, greater than tribe. The human's eyes narrowed. He waited. He knew the next words would change everything. The younger sister's voice broke the silence. Her cheeks flushed faintly blue, her glowing eyes wet with emotion. It means you are bound to us. It means you must take us as your wives. The words hung in the air. The fire crackled softly. The human froze. His heart stumbled. He thought he had misheard, but their faces told him otherwise. He shook his head, his voice hard. That cannot be right. I saved you because it was right, not because I seek marriage. But the older sister's eyes did not waver. Her voice grew firmer. You may not seek it, but the bond is made. Our people will see us as yours now. No tribe will take us back. No life will wait for us outside this bond. Without you, we are nothing. With you, we are whole. The human's breath caught. He looked at them, two alien sisters, fragile, desperate, but their words carried weight of tradition, weight of survival. The younger one crawled closer. She placed her small hand over his wounded arm. Her glowing eyes begged him, please, do not reject us. We have no home. We have no tribe. We only have you. Her voice cracked. Tears slipped down her cheeks. The older one placed a hand on her back. Then she whispered too. You may see yourself as only a man, but to us, you are more than that. You are fire in the snow. You are life. The human felt the weight of their words. It pressed deep into his chest. He had only wanted to save them, but now they offered him something greater, something binding, something dangerous. He closed his eyes. His heart pounded. The storm outside was gone, but inside him, a new storm began to rise. The sisters leaned closer. Their voices joined, soft, trembling. We belong to you now. Will you belong to us? The fire crackled. The hut was warm, but the human felt colder than ever, for the choice before him was not simple, and the answer he gave would shape all their fates. The fire burned low. Ashes glowed red in the stove. Morning light touched the snow through cracks in the hut. The world outside looked calm, but inside the air was heavy. Heavy with the sister's words, heavy with his silence. The human sat still. His knife rested on his knee, his eyes fixed on the flames. The sister sat across from him, hands locked together, glowing eyes waiting. He had not answered yet. He could not. The younger sister's voice broke first. Her words trembled. You saved us. You promised not to leave us. But if you say no, it will be the same as leaving. Her tears fell silently. Each drop struck his heart harder than the storm had. She pressed closer to her older sister, her small frame shaking, her voice so small. We cannot go back. They will kill us if they find us. If you do not take us, we are already dead. The older sister stayed stronger, but her eyes told the same story. She looked straight at him, her glowing gaze sharp. Among our people, rejection after the bond is worse than death. If you turn from us now, we are nothing. The human's chest tightened. He wanted to speak, to tell them he was only a man, that he had no place in their laws, no place in their culture, but the words caught in his throat, because deep inside, he remembered the way they clung to him, the way they had begged for life in the snow, the way they looked at him now, not as a stranger, but as everything. He closed his eyes. Memories of the storm returned, the hunters, the fight, the fear, the fire, and the sisters' trembling voices whispering his name. He could still feel their trust, their desperate belief in him. It was a chain stronger than steel. The younger crawled toward him. Her small hands touched his arm. Her glowing eyes searched his face. Please, if you say yes, we will never betray you. We will serve you, stand by you, live only for you. But if you say no, we will fade. Her words broke him more than any spear could. The older moved closer too. She spoke softly, almost like a vow already sworn. You think you saved us once, but truly, you must save us forever. The human opened his eyes. He looked at them, two sisters, two fragile lives abandoned by all, and yet they still believed in him, believed he was enough, more than enough. His heart pounded. One choice, one word, could bind them for life, could change everything. He felt the weight of it, he felt the fear of it, but also the strange warmth of it. Silence stretched long. The fire crackled softly. The sisters stared, waiting, their breaths trembling, their eyes shining with tears, both ready to give themselves to him, both terrified of being refused. The human's lips parted, but no sound came, not yet. His heart thundered louder than his voice. He knew what he wanted to say, but fear and fate held him still. The sisters leaned closer, their voices joined, soft, desperate. Our lives, our hearts, they are already yours. Only your word remains. The fire flickered, the snow outside glittered under pale sunlight, and in that small hut, the weight of love, of fear, of destiny, all pressed down on one man. The choice of the heart was before him, and the next moment would decide everything. The fire had almost died. Thin smoke curled toward the broken roof. The storm outside was quiet now. Only the soft fall of snow remained. But inside the hut, the air was thick, heavy with silence, heavy with waiting. The sisters knelt before the human, their glowing eyes locked on him, tears on their cheeks, hope in their trembling voices. They had spoken their truth. They had begged their plea. Now all that remained was his answer. The human's chest rose and fell. His wounds ached. His body screamed for rest, but his heart fought harder. He looked at them, two fragile beings, cast out to die, yet still alive because of him. He remembered their cries in the snow, their hands clutching his arm, their glowing eyes begging for warmth. He remembered the hunters, the fight, the roar of the storm, and the vow he had spoken without thinking. I'll protect you. Those words had not been empty. They had become truth, and now truth had become destiny. He stood slowly. The sisters gasped, their hands reaching for him, fear flashing in their eyes, afraid he would turn, afraid he would walk away, afraid of rejection worse than death. But he did not step back. He knelt before them. He took their small hands in his voice steady, low but firm. I did not seek this bond, he said, but I will not deny it. I cannot leave you. Not now. Not ever. The sisters froze, their glowing eyes widened, their breaths caught in their throats. The younger burst into tears. She threw her arms around him, clinging as if afraid he might vanish, her voice breaking with joy. You chose us. You truly chose us. The older pressed her forehead to his chest, silent tears running down her face, her voice low, filled with emotion. You are ours now, and we are yours. The human held them close, their bodies trembling with relief, but their warmth spread into him, and for the first time in the low, cold night, he felt something beyond survival. He felt belonging. The fire crackled, snowlight spilled into the hut. The sisters pressed against him, their tears turned into soft smiles, their glowing eyes shone like stars. The bond was sealed, not by their culture alone, but by his choice, his vow. They whispered together, almost like a sacred chant. We are yours. You are ours. Forever. The human breathed deep. His heart steadied. The weight on his chest lifted. Yet he knew this was only the beginning. Because bonds such as these did not go unseen. Far away, beyond the storm, the tribe stirred. Their whispers carried in the wind. They had seen the fire. They had heard the cries. And they would not forget. The sisters clung tighter, as if they too felt the danger. But their fear was different now, not the fear of death, but the fear of losing the one who had chosen them. The human looked down at them, his arms wrapped firm around their shoulders, his voice strong. I made my vow in the storm. Now I make it in the snow. No one will take you from me. The words echoed in the hut, carved deeper than stone. The sisters wept with joy. The human closed his eyes, and for a brief moment the cold world outside faded, and warmth, true warmth, filled the broken shelter. The vow was made, the bond unbroken, and in the heart of winter, 3 lives became one.